Well, thank you, Sharon. You're really too kind. Um, very extensive reading of my CV. Anyways, so in a few minutes, I'll describe our work on transrectal ultrasound, 3D ultrasound imaging, where we've used it for prostate biopsy and brachytherapy, and also potential application in colorectal cancer imaging. So I chose this topic out of our research portfolio because of the potential collaboration with in colorectal cancer here at your institution. So first, I have disclosure. We have a licensed technology to multiple companies listed, and we have ongoing research agreements with multiple companies. You can see we even license companies to competitors, so that takes skill. Our lab focus, first of all, I'll give you the vision for our lab. Our lab focus is to develop cost-effective imaging technologies or imaging systems. Cost-effective meaning not cause hospitals to buy multi-million-dollar systems, but really to buy really inexpensive, hopefully efficacious systems for diagnostic and image-guided intervention. So it's very broad field. And then the key is to our belief is to translate our innovations to clinical use through commercialization. So of course we translate it into the clinic and the clinical trials to show utility, efficacy, safety, and so on. But to be able to deliver our innovations to the broad world, we have to do it through commercialization. So that's a major issue. So we have many projects in our lab. It's quite a long list. You can see all of them involve 3D ultrasound imaging, and some of these technologies have been commercialized, and one of them is we have an agreement to commercialize. So a wide range of applications from radiology, radiation oncology, rheumatology, surgery, urology, and so on. So we work with physicians from across the medical school. And physicians come to us with new ideas, basically unmet clinical needs that we try to solve. So first of all, why 3D ultrasound? There will be physicians come to us with an unmet clinical need, and so we don't, why not use CT or MR, or PET imaging? So our approach is to use 3D ultrasound. It's basically ultrasound is used everywhere. Every hospital in the world has some form of ultrasound imaging, but it's 2D ultrasound, and it's highly useful. But there are limitations for some applications. So our view was to develop 3D ultrasound, basically convert a 2D ultrasound machine into a 3D ultrasound system without adding significant cost. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And then we can have a 3D image of the anatomy, and that reduces the variability in the procedure, hopefully be able to integrate robotics, AI tools into the software, improve guidance, because now we have a 3D image, very quick, inexpensive, at the bedside 3D ultrasound image. Can we improve needle guidance into the body, basically for biopsy or delivering therapy through a needle-based or applicator-based approach? And of course, integrate, because we have a 3D image, it makes it easier to fuse or integrate other modalities, MR images, CT, PET, and in fact, 2D ultrasound, 2D and 3D ultrasound. So this is our vision, and we've been working on it for, I guess, about 2 decades now, developing a range of applications. And the commercialization approach, so Gino described his commercialization approach. Ours is a little bit different. So we have an active patenting policy, so it's key for commercialization. So we have many patents, about 37 have issued. So our approach is to license patents. Although we spun off companies, we spin off companies if we can find basically graduate students who want to enter start their own company. So it's very difficult so it doesn't happen very often to find a graduate student who wants to do that. We found some, but the major effort is through licensing. So basically our lab at the university stays, we don't take all the people into a company, but we stay as academic academic lab, we patent, and then we find licensees that we can license to. And therefore, we end up having active collaboration, research grants through various mechanisms with the companies we work with. So that's basically our approach. And so I stay an academic. I haven't left, although I'm a CEO of a company, I haven't really left the university. So specifically, one example, which is the prostate imaging. So the unmet clinical need is the key. In fact, every one of our projects, we make sure that we are working on unmet clinical need, and therefore critical to that is partnership with physicians. So now a few years ago, quite a few years ago now, probably over 10 years ago, physician came to us, a radiologist, with the issue of prostate biopsy. Basically, the conventional approach, sextant-based biopsy, about 30% are false negatives. So therefore, men undergo multiple sessions of biopsy. So the issue was, can we improve the procedure? Because he was certain that the patient he had that day has prostate cancer, but the biopsy was negative. So can we improve it? So our approach, and therefore invention, where we filed multiple patents, was to develop a transrectal 3D ultrasound imaging system. Basically, you can take any ultrasound transducer that's used for transrectal imaging from any company and convert it into a 3D imaging modality, and therefore have a complete view of the prostate. And then potentially, well, we hope that we'll improve the biopsy procedure by allowing biopsy planning, by recording the biopsy locations. If the results were positive, be able to follow on with treatment, depending what the treatment was, and to register the images, the 3D ultrasound images with MR, where MR or PET, more recently it's PET, but with MR originally, because in MR you could see in many cases the lesion, but under ultrasound you cannot. So by doing that, we hope that we can solve the problem. And in fact, so we describe our development, but along the development, we have licensed technology. So you can see even Varian and Elekta licensed technology, Hitachi, Focal Healthcare, and so on. So our approach, so graduate student, PhD, built this system. So that's where multiple patents are on this system. So you can, the cursor, I can see. So you can see the transrectal ultrasound transducer is held in a device. In this case, it was a hand cranked. It was easier to get FDA clearance if we have, but more recently we have motors now. So basically rotate the transducer along its long axis. While it's rotating, then we collect images into our computer from the ultrasound machine via video frame grabber and build a 3D image in real time. So again, we developed a real-time software and filed multiple patents on that too. And this whole contraption is basically, you see the covers are off, but basically it's a counterbalance. So basically the physician doesn't have to hold it. The transducer will not fall if he lets go, he or she let go. Basically, it's completely counterbalanced. Of course, the commercial version looks much nicer, so you can see everything is covered, and basically it's the same system, and in here are the counterbalance mechanisms. So basically, it's if the individual lets go, then it stays in the patient. So how do we get a 3D image? So depending on the kind of transducer, ultrasound transducer, for biopsy, for transrectal biopsy, it's end firing. For transperineal biopsy, it's side firing ultrasound transducers, typically. And so by rotating the transducer, we of course collect images either in the kind of radial pattern with the focus in the prostate or on the rectum. And so these images are collected. We collect about a couple of hundred images in about 10 seconds or so, 10, 12 seconds. And then as the images come into the computer, we build them into a 3D image. So as soon as the scanning is over, the 12-second scan is over, we get a 3D image immediately. And then the procedure, basically the additional time is really 12 seconds, although in fact, it ends up being much faster during the procedure because the physician can get a complete image of the prostate and see the lesion, in this case, see the lesion very clearly and guide and then plan and guide the needle to the target. So let's see if I can. Yeah. So there's a 3D image of the prostate. You can see the image quality. Well, it's quite good. You can see the prostate quite clearly. The rectal wall is in the bottom, bladder on top. You can see the contrast of lesions in the prostate. On the ultrasound is very poor. That's why fusion with other modalities are useful. So our software allows manipulation, cutting, viewing the anatomy in any orientation. So currently there are a few other applications, 3D viewing applications, but as I said, we filed patents on this and licensed it to multiple companies. So we believe this approach, our approach, is much more intuitive. We show it to a physician, and within 10 seconds, they're able to do everything they need to do. So the key is really intuitive approach to manipulating, rather than have to have basically an engineer beside you to show you how to use the machine, the software. So basically, we have added various tools to make the procedure, the workflow more efficient, automated segmentation. So basically, machine learning, deep learning segmentation takes a fraction of a second to get the complete 3D outline of the prostate. And then, of course, you get various views. To guide the procedure, to guide the biopsy, we can show views, schematic views of the ultrasound transducer, the needle from the rectal wall up, so the physician can plan the distribution of the biopsy. So all this is available. And of course, recording. So we have developed a deep learning-based needle segmentation tool. So as the needle is fired into the prostate, so 2 or 3 image frames, we can identify the images and record the location. So here are the locations of the biopsy cores within the prostate. And of course, this can be viewed from different orientations and superimposed on the image itself. So all that is now with modern deep learning tools very fast. So of course, registration with another modality. So more recently, fusion biopsy, basically 3D ultrasound fused with MR, is typically used. So we have developed a deep learning-based fusion method. So you can see the 3D ultrasound image of the prostate. This is the MR image. The physician just looks at it and then clicks a button, and it automatically fused. So now we can navigate through the prostate in ultrasound or MR and get the same view in both panels. So these can be overlapped, but the physician we worked with would like that better side by side, so you can see clearly both the MR and the ultrasound and identify locations, corresponding locations in both images. So anything that happens to one image happens to the other image. So that's fairly fast now. And then of course, to guide a biopsy, so we can segment the lesion, the targeted lesion. For example, in this patient, there were 2 lesions to target, and then in MR and diffused, and then the biopsy was performed, and then these are the locations in this patient. Where the biopsy, you can see multiple passes through this lesion and the other lesion. So the key was to make the workflow very efficient without adding too much expense. So the last thing I'll just touch on is we had another radiologist who was quite interested in rectal cancer. So we modified a system for rectal cancer. So basically, it's the transrectal ultrasound transducer side firing. The transducer is side firing, basically attached to a motor. In this case, the physician liked to hold it by himself and insert it into the rectum. by a click of a button on the computer. The transducer rotated over 360 degrees in 12 seconds, and we collected an image every degree, so 360 images in 12 seconds, and the 3D image was available immediately after the complete of the scan. Again, real-time reconstruction. Now, he liked to hold it by himself, stabilize it in the patient and hold it. We've also built a stabilizer, a counterbalance stabilizer that can support this, so it doesn't need to be held. And we're using this kind of approach for brachytherapy, actually. So again, we have 3D visualization tools already developed, which are small, with modifications for 360-degree rotation. And so the examples in the clinical trial he ran, so these are just a few images showing you the really the high quality images that can be obtained. We can see the tumor right here and other anatomical structures. So this image, the 3D image, has been sliced to reveal the anatomy. Here's another view, another patient. Again, you can see the tumor fairly clearly right here. So, we developed this, but unfortunately, the physician had medical issues, so this project actually stopped. But I hope to continue it here with collaboration with you here. So, to summarize in this quick presentation, our lab activity ranges from dealing with unmet clinical needs, and I stress that because I drum it into my students that if they're working in the healthcare sector, they have to deal with unmet clinical needs. In our case, we invent imaging systems, imaging solutions, test them in clinical trials in partnership with, of course, our clinical partners, and then seek to commercialize the technology. So we've developed many applications using 3D ultrasound. We've have multiple licenses and multiple collaboration with companies, and those activities are ongoing. So with that, thank you for your attention. And you can see it's a big team. We work with quite a lot of physicians from all across the medical school, scientists from across the world, actually. I came back from China, developing collaborations there, and our own staff and many students. Thank you for your attention.